Welcome to another episode of AI Talks with Chris and Nita. Today, we're going deep on a pretty fascinating topic, inverse reinforcement learning. Have you heard about this one?
Inverse reinforcement learning, or IRL. It's definitely a hot topic in AI right now.
Okay, great. Well, for our listeners who might not be familiar with IRL, can you give us like a quick rundown of what it is?
Sure. So basically, in inverse reinforcement learning, you're trying to figure out what motivates an expert to make certain decisions. So it's kind of like being a detective. You observe the expert doing their thing, like playing a game or maybe driving a car.
Right.
And from those observations, you try to understand the underlying reward function that's driving their actions.
Okay, got it. So you're not just trying to copy what the expert does, you're trying to figure out why they're doing it?
Exactly. And that's the key difference between IRL and just plain old imitation learning. We're not interested in just mimicking the expert's actions. We want to understand the intent behind those actions.
I see. So if we could figure out that reward function, we could program AI to understand and replicate that expert behavior.
Exactly. And that's the exciting part.
Okay, I see. But why is that so important? I mean, can't we just, program AI with the rules we want them to follow directly?
Well, it turns out that defining those rules, like those reward functions, can be incredibly difficult and tricky.
Yeah, I can imagine. There are so many situations in the real world where it's tough to define a clear set of rules for every scenario.
Precisely. And plus, whenever you try to design these reward functions manually, you always run the risk of introducing your own biases and assumptions into the system.
So it's like we're limiting the AI by trying to spoon-feed it our own understanding of the world.
Yeah, kind of. Think about it. How would you program a robot to, let's say, clean a room perfectly? I mean, there are countless ways to do it.
Right. And even if you came up with a set of rules, it would probably be pages and pages long, and you'd still miss some nuances, I bet.
Exactly. That's where IRL comes in. Instead of us trying to explicitly program the rules, we can let the AI learn the rules of the game by observing an expert.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty here. How does IRL actually work? How do we go from watching an expert to uncovering their secret reward function?
Well, there are several different approaches to IRL, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. But let's focus on a few of the main ones mentioned in the paper we're looking at today.
Sounds good.
Okay, so one approach is called feature matching. It's based on the idea that the expert is trying to maximize certain features in the environment.
Okay, so we're looking for patterns in what the expert prioritizes.
Exactly. We try to identify which features are consistently present in the expert's actions, and then create a reward function that rewards those features.
Got it. So what's another approach?
Okay, so another popular one is called maximum margin IRL. This approach tries to find a reward function that makes the expert's actions look much better than any other possible actions.
So we're trying to maximize the difference between what the expert does and what a non-expert might do in the same situation. Clever.
Yep. And then there's maximum entropy IRL. This one is a bit more complex, but basically it assumes that the expert is not just trying to achieve one specific goal, but rather they're trying to find a policy that's good in a variety of different situations. So we're looking for a reward function that leads to a flexible and adaptable policy.
Got it. It's like instead of just focusing on one right way to do something, we're acknowledging that there might be many good ways to achieve a goal.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got feature matching, maximum margin IRL, and maximum entropy IRL. That's three main approaches. Are there others that we should know about?
Well, there are, but those are definitely some of the most popular and well-studied ones. Each of them has its own strengths and weaknesses, and the choice of which one to use depends on the specific problem you're trying to solve.
I see. Okay, so we've talked about how IRL works in theory, but where is this actually being used in the real world?
Oh, IRL is finding applications in a bunch of different fields. For example, in robotics, it's helping robots learn complex tasks like, say, grasping objects or navigating really cluttered environments just by watching human demonstrations.
Wow, so robots are learned to be more human-like by using IRL.
Yeah, essentially. And it's also being used in autonomous driving, where self-driving cars can learn from the decisions of experienced human drivers to better handle complex situations on the road.
That makes sense. And I can imagine it being helpful in other areas too, like medical diagnosis or even finance, where experts often make intuitive decisions that are hard to codify.
Exactly. IRL is proving to be super valuable in situations where it's just too difficult or even impossible to explicitly define a reward function.
Wow. So IRL is not just some abstract concept. It's already making a real impact in the world.
Definitely. And I think its influence is only going to grow in the coming years.
That's fascinating. It makes you wonder, where else could this technology be applied? Could we use IRL to understand the decision-making processes of, like, artists or musicians? Like, what makes a piece of art truly great?
That's a great question. And, I wouldn't be surprised if researchers are already exploring those possibilities. The potential applications of IRL are vast. And it's exciting to think about how this technology might change the way we understand expertise and intelligence in the future.
Yeah, that's a really cool thought. Well, this has been a super interesting deep dive into inverse reinforcement learning. Thanks so much for explaining all of this.
No problem. Glad we could dive into this together.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to think about how IRL could be applied in your own fields or areas of interest. It really is a powerful tool for understanding expert behavior, and it has the potential to revolutionize the way we build AI systems. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.